We're here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are New Generation.
Bringing news just for you. It's Thursday, March 26th here in Seoul. I'm Lee Soo-jin, and this is News Generation. Joining us today is Jian.
Soo-jin.
To have you, and also joining us with us.
Happy Thursday.
Happy Thursday, and both are here to speak on behalf of people in their 20s and 30s. So as we head into the end of the work week and the weather starts to warm up, we're turning to a classic part of campus life here in Korea. So many Korean universities have what's called MT, short for membership training, essentially a college orientation trip for freshmen. It typically takes place around this time of year as the school year in Korea begins in March. So it's a chance to step away from campus, break the ice, and really bond with your fellow classmates, often for the very first time. From group games to late night conversations, it's all about building friendships and creating those early college memories. So Jian, what was your freshman college orientation like or experience like?
Well, my first year in my university, the MT's orientation trip, or I should say a bonding trip as a first year student, was honestly quite awkward indeed. I didn't know anyone, I didn't know a single soul over there, and it was a bit of a shock at first. I went when I was a first year undergrad and also again during my postgrad studies. It's quite a uniquely Korean tradition, I must say, and it's often the first time students try alcohol as adults, meet a whole new circle of friends, and are gently introduced to the senior junior culture. We call it 선후배 culture. In a way, it's rather charming mix of social connection and bonding as well. You learn how to navigate group dynamics, of course, and share a few laughs and perhaps survive a slightly chaotic evening or two during MT. So quite an experience, both memorable and at times delightfully overwhelming. So messy at times, but that's half the fun, doesn't it?
I think it's like the first time when kids can actually kind of let go, enjoy themselves, which is why it can get a bit crazy. So what about you, Julian?
Well, the concept of MTs do not exist in the US, so my freshman year experience was very different from what Julian just described. In the US, orientations are just a short event during the day where you go sit in the auditorium, listen to someone speak about the class registration, campus events, or anything related to school registration, and then you split off into groups and register for your first semester classes. And although MTs don't exist in the US, I remember they're having like week-long campus events where you would go meet people, check out events hosted by different campus organizations that are being hosted as well. It's a really good time to explore different campus activities, clubs, and meet new people. I really look back fondly this time because I've actually met a lot of lifelong friends I still keep in contact with to this day.
So while the format is a bit different, the core idea of meeting people and finding your place on campus still seems to be the same wherever you are. So it sounds like whether it's MT or campus events, those first connections really do have a lasting impact. So we're going to talk more about this, but first, let's take a look at the screen. Spring is a season for outings, and college campuses are no exception. As the new school year kicks off, universities across Korea are gearing up for their freshman orientation trips, an age-old tradition known as MT. Today on News Generation, we take a closer look at how these college orientations have evolved, from what they look like for millennials to how similar traditions play out overseas, and how MT culture is making a comeback today, possibly in a very different form than before. Just as we saw in the video, MT is just about fun. It's become a snapshot of how campus culture and student life have evolved over time. So let's take a look beyond Korea and see how that experience compares. So Julian, you obviously went to school in the States, so how does college life look like for Gen Zs in the US?
Yeah, so I personally had a lot of fun being a college student in the US, but many Gen Zs in the US, and I'm sure any Gen Z in any country can relate to this, but many of us lost a lot of our college years to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was frustrating because I spent half of my college years online, and many of us felt it was super unfair because we were robbed of that fun social opportunities that you really only get as a college student, and we still had to pay for full tuition. So it was a really frustrating time because of the pandemic. But despite that, I still really value my experience. I spent my college years meeting a lot of people, traveling a whole bunch, and working a lot. My time as a university student was the foundation I really needed to become the person I am today. And because of that experience, I really feel like I'm becoming the adult I am now. But I think compared to the average Korean university student's experience, my academic career is different. For starters, MTs just didn't exist, and I guess that general structured group culture didn't really exist in my space. So as a student, whether it be a project or job or even a last-minute trip I wanted to take myself, I felt so free to do what I wanted for myself. And as soon as I turned 18, I really took advantage of taking control of my own life and seizing any exciting opportunity.
Right, I mean, I think that sense of freedom is what really stands out. A very different vibe from the structured group culture we often see here. So let's rewind a bit and hear what it was like for a different generation right here in Korea. So what was college life like for millennials?
I do realize that. I think it was quite centered on group activities, collective ones, and shared experiences as well. So there was a strong sense of belonging, and people naturally moved together as a collective group. Each university had its own cheering culture, often with organized chants and performances, especially during sports events like 연고전 or Koreanculture, Yonsei University, or Korea University Games. It created a real sense of identity and pride of their schools, and students would easily mingle even if they didn't know each other. There was a very open and inclusive atmosphere inside the campus. Departments often set up their own pop-up bars and invited students from other majors, other schools, and which made it quite lively and social. It was a lovely way to meet new people and build connections across faculties, different schools, different majors. And after exams or events, it was common to gather for a group get-together. Sometimes professors joined. And orientation trips and MTs were essential. And even during free periods, if you don't have any classes, people would naturally gather in the department lounge without making any special plans. It was always easy to find someone to talk to and spend time with, so you were never on your own.
That sounds really nice.
Indeed.
It sounds like a more, I guess, tight-knit, community-driven campus life in here in Korea. So now with activities picking up right after the pandemic, mtculture seems to be now making a grand return. So how do Korea, specifically college orientations today, compare to those of the past years?
It's a very good question. As with many events that were paused during the pandemic, as you mentioned, Sang-jun, MTs are returning as well now in 2026. Reservations in places long known as MT hotspots in Korea, such as Chuncheon in Gangwon province, Gapyeong and Cheongpyeong in Gyeonggi-do province, are on the rise again. In Korea, late March into early April has traditionally been MT season. It's early spring now, so the scenery is quite lovely, which adds to the whole experience. And back in the day, we will go all grocery together, shopping together, and buy meat and drinks for the evening and travel by train or bus sometimes. And once we arrived, it was all about eating and drinking. Grilled meat followed by kimchi stew or instant noodles to finish. It was almost a kind of a ritual. When I organized MTs or the bonding trips, I also included various activities. I was actually the student council president, so
wow.
I took charge of the MT. I did what I wanted to do. I actually invited a instructor that was the recreation instructor, and added some activities like programs like using ATV, a quad bike program, rides, which everybody absolutely loved it, and also made some t-shirts and some jackets, university jackets with logos on it.
Wow.
People love it, and we get also organize some donations for that, for the payment. So these days, while things are a lot more organized and comfortable these days, as you may know, the essence remains the same, bringing people together, sharing simple moments and creating lasting memories. So very little sleep is involved, but plenty of memories when you go back.
And it's amazing how you played a huge pivotal role in helping those freshmen create those memories.
Did I? Well,
hopefully maybe you'll do one for our new student team as well.
Oh yes, lovely. That will be lovely.
Right? So it really feels like the spirit of MT is still there, just with a more modern, relaxed twist. And that shift in vibe seems to especially noticeable among students today. So how has the atmosphere of college orientations changed for students, I guess, today?
Yeah, well, these days, even the upperclassmen in college, many of them actually didn't experience MTs, the traditional MT that we were talking about. So the atmosphere, I guess, has changed from the past because MTs are no longer mandatory and there's no pressure to join. So if people don't want to join, they simply just choose not to join. And I've also heard that people used to drink a lot of MTs, but that's not really the case anymore because people can drink or they can choose not to drink, and that's just completely their prerogative. In the past, drinking games were very common, but now it's a little more diverse. MTs are organized with things like board games or escape room style activities that people can choose to participate in. Even though I was personally a college student in California, I actually had the chance to study abroad here in Korea, and I experienced the MT myself. And needless to say, it was quite the culture shock for me because I had no idea what to expect going in, but I guess the atmosphere really did change because if I didn't want to drink, I didn't have to drink. I didn't feel pressure to drink. And there was so many diverse things that we could have done. There was a karaoke machine, a board game, a bunch of group activities that were hosted by the leaders, and barbecue grills with ramen. It was so good, and it was a fun experience, but after that experience, because I really value my sleep, I don't know if I can ever go to one again.
So what was the biggest culture shock, do you think?
I think just like the whole group culture, everyone getting together to spend all night together playing games and having fun. That's just something I've never really done. The only time I really pulled all night in college was to study for finals. So
Fair enough.
it was quite the fun experience.
So I feel like that is a really pretty big shift from something that once felt almost mandatory to a much more flexible, choice-driven experience. So it sounds like today's MT is less about pressure, more about participating on your own terms, which probably makes it more inclusive and enjoyable for a wider range of students. So we also wanted to hear directly from our viewers. So we ran a poll on the IDI News YouTube channel asking, what are your views on MTs? So here's what the results showed. So a slight majority, 55%, said they would like to take part. Meanwhile, 23% felt it should disappear altogether, reflecting a fairly divided view on its place in campus life today. And 22% said they don't mind the tradition, but wouldn't personally attend. So the results are quite telling. While a majority are still open to having that experience, nearly half are either hesitant or totally against it, which really highlights how attitudes towards orientations are really shifting. So it seems like the tradition is no longer given, but something some students are actively re-evaluating. And to get a more personal perspective on this, we're going to speak with someone who attended college in Korea. That conversation is coming up right after the break, so don't go anywhere.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search out Channel Arirang News. Click Posts and cast your vote in the poll. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us today is Lee So-yeon, who attended a college orientation trip after the pandemic. So hello, So-yeon. Thank you so much for connecting with us today.
Oh, thank you so much. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. So So-yeon, what was your college orientation experience or your MT experience like?
So I actually managed to attend an MT, or what you call orientation, with my rock band society when I was already a senior, and it was surprisingly laid back. So I didn't see any of like extreme drinking culture people would often describe from back in the day, and instead it was more like fun icebreakers and party games. There's like absolutely no pressure. Everyone just went their own paces. And of course, being a senior, obviously it was so awkward, and I could have quite matched the like reckless energy of the 20-year-old freshman, even though I'm for a more like energetic side. So I paced myself as well. Once younger student called it a night, the atmosphere like shifted to more mature setting. And we have what I call like exclusive perks, like some secret whiskeys, acoustic guitar sessions, because it's a rock band society, and late night runs in search for ice cream. So overall, I'm really glad I didn't graduate without experiencing a proper orientation, and it was a great way to wrap up my college years.
Nice. Yeah, I think we all assume that you enjoyed a lot. So, then how do you think your college life differs from that of previous generations?
So, since I went to college in the year 2020, you could get a hint that I mentioned that I managed to join MT in my late years in college. So, and which would be more accessible back in the days. And of course, there was no large scale festivals. And while our student council worked incredibly hard to like organize gatherings, the restrictions made it really tough. And for my entire first semester, I didn't even set foot on campus. I stayed on my hometown because the dorms were closed. And later, the university tried a hybrid approach where half of the students were online and other half was physically in the classroom, but it never quite clicked. So, like, let's be honest, like, given the choice, very few students would trade the convenience at home for a commute to a lecture hall. So, I'd say the two biggest differences were the lack of spontaneous social gatherings and number two, online classes.
Great. Well, thanks for sharing your experience. To wrap up this conversation, I wanted to ask you, what part of pre-pandemic college orientation culture do you wish you've experienced?
Well, first, I have to say you can't miss what you never had. So, like, the 2 year gap essentially de-schooled us on what an MT or like social gathering even was. And all we have was some bad, sometimes negative images from like massive drinkings from the media or some like epic stories from my seniors. But my only real regret is like missing those like early stage social interactions and the scale of a proper campus festival. But aside from that, it is what it is. We cannot even change the past. It's all about how we embrace the experience we did have. So, and if I'm being honest, like there's at least one silver lining. I think I quite benefit from some generous grading during the peak of the pandemic. So I'm taking the wins where I can find them.
I mean, I'm glad you at least got to experience it as like an older, as an upperclassman. So I'm glad you had that experience. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us today.
Thank you so much.
So we just heard from a student who attended a college orientation trip after the pandemic, sharing what her experience was like, how her college life differs from previous generations, and what aspects of traditional MT she feels like she may have missed out on. Now, some of the defining features of college life in Korea include club activities, group blind dates, often called meetings here in Korea, and the idea of dating someone from the same school as you, called campus couples here in Korea. So, Jun, what did college life and dating look like for millennials in Korea?
So besides orientation, besides MT, we had lots of fun and activities inside the campus. So for millennials in Korea, university life was all about connecting with others and experiencing things together. As I mentioned, when it came to clubs, or we call it 동아리 in Korean, many students chose activities like music, dance, or leisure, mainly to enjoy their hobbies and, of course, to make friends. As for meetings, it's not about official meetings, it's about group blind date or setup. They were quite popular. They were usually organized or arranged through a mutual friend, and people joined not just for dating, but simply to meet new people and socialize and drink together. Friends who were already in relationships would often introduce their partner's friends to their own friends. There were often group settings with light-hearted games and a very lively atmosphere. And then there was the idea of CC or campus couples that I have never experienced in my life, and I'm not going to do that again. Well, dating someone from the same university or even the same department was quite common. It made everyday campus life a bit more exciting and delightful, though of course breakups could make things very awkward inside the campus when you take classes. So your campus life will feel like a dream, but it could be a nightmare at the same time.
Right. I mean, it does sound like a very social, experience-driven, many different experiences, good and bad, I guess.
That's right.
Campus life, meeting people and having fun were just as important as anything else. And now it sounds like priorities may have shifted quite a bit for today's students. So how does this, Julian, compare to Gen Z's approach to college life these days?
Yeah, so like I mentioned earlier, a lot of Gen Z missed out on many of the important, crucial social opportunities that you're supposed to get in college due to the pandemic. There were campus events actually held through Zoom. but honestly, no one really participated in those. Social events held remotely just don't have the same weight as in-person events do, so no one really felt super motivated to attend. But outside the years where remote learning was prevalent, I think it's similar to how millennials socialized in college too. There are many college organizations are a great source of socializing as well as meeting people that share similar interests with you. And many students meet others through clubs or various campus events. I personally made a lot of friends through my work, campus clubs, events, and even my neighbors in my apartment complex. And I genuinely just think it's case by case with how people socialize and make friends in college. People have their own comfort levels, so I think college is the perfect way to discover what your preferences are and how to meet people on your own terms.
Very true. So that is a noticeable shift from social experience-driven choices to a much more practical and goal-oriented approach, especially when it comes to building skills and networks for the future. And it's with those changing priorities that campus culture itself seems to be evolving. So what new campus trends, Chun, would you personally like to see or see go?
Well, Soyeon and Sang-Chun also mentioned that there was no pressure of drinking inside the campus.
That's a good one.
Yes. And even in my time, there's no, as I mentioned earlier, that GenZ missed out a good portion of a college social life in COVID-19. And today, that even in my life, there wasn't a real strong culture of forcing students to drink. And I believe that's still largely the case these days. But having said that, I do think that it's quite important to continue moving away from any kind of pressure that they feel inside the school. But what matters most is creating an environment where people can feel comfortable, enjoyable and delightful will be the best thing. And above all, I do believe that safety should always comes first, so that everyone can simply enjoy the experience in a positive and respectful way. It's about making memories, not mistakes.
Right. I mean, I can personally really relate to that. I don't like drinking. I don't like the taste of alcohol.
You know.
So I think it's really important to not feel like you're pressured to drink to be able to have fun. So what about you, Julian?
Yeah, everything Julian said, I 100% agree with. One of the reasons why I personally really value my time as a student was because I felt free to explore whatever I wanted. This was a time where I started my career and worked with people that I gained so much inspiration from. If I didn't go to college, I wouldn't even be pursuing the career or even make the shift such as moving to Korea. I wouldn't have been able to do that without my college experience. So that's why I really think it's important to emphasize the importance that college is a time for one to make their own decisions and to explore what's best for their own personal and professional growth without any external pressure. This is a time to challenge your own beliefs that may have been pushed onto you when you were younger. So I think creating a positive as well as a respectful environment where like-minded individuals can meet together and discuss and grow is crucial to have a fruitful college experience.
Well said. So college traditions may evolve, but the goal remains the same, helping students connect and find their own place. From classic MT trips to more flexible, modern formats, campus culture continues to reflect each generation's priorities. However it looks, those early college moments still shape memories and friendships that will last well beyond graduation. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of News Generation. When News Gen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time with more stories and discussions. A big thanks to Chi-hyun.
Thanks for having me.
Coming in. Also Julian.
Thank you for also having me today.
And to our viewers, thank you for watching, and we hope you find your own version of a school orientation with good people and great memories today. We are News Generation.